Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into the early history of Islam, and our source material for this journey, it starts by setting quite a scene.
It really does. Describing Arabia, what, about 1,500 years ago?
Yeah, and it paints it as a place that had, quote, lost humanity.
Yeah, some pretty harsh conditions mentioned.
We're talking infant daughters buried alive, idol worship just rampant.
Even inside the Kaaba itself, the source says.
Exactly. It really frames it as a time that was, absolutely ripe for change.
Definitely. And the specific source we're digging into today is a YouTube video transcript.
Right.
It's titled The Rise of Islam, a historical documentary from the channel Zulfikar.
Got it. So our mission here, for you listening, is basically to follow its narrative.
Exactly. Pull out the key events, the maybe surprising details it includes.
The challenges it highlights.
To really get a handle on how Islam emerged and grew in those very first years, according to this particular account.
Think of us as your guides, just navigating this specific historical document together.
A shortcut, maybe, to getting informed on this version of events.
Right. So diving into that early context the source lays out. Beyond the harsh social conditions and idol worship, it brings up something interesting.
Yeah, this expectation among the Jewish tribes there.
They were anticipating a prophet, weren't they? Called Ahmad, based on their scriptures.
That's what the source claims. Waiting really eagerly, it says, kind of like how people wait for the Imam Mahdi today.
Interesting comparison.
And then, as this account tells it, 570 CE, the prophet is born.
And the source points to some, well, pretty specific miracles happening on that very day.
It does. Idols falling in the Kaaba, supposedly.
And that ancient fire in the Persian temple, the one that burned for 1,000 years.
It just went out.
Wow. And the source interprets these as, what, like a sign?
Yeah, basically an announcement of Kufr's decline. The end of paganism starting.
Okay. And before all the prophecy stuff, the source really emphasizes his character.
No, definitely. Truthful, honest. Says he was really respected by people in Arabia for it.
That respect seems key to the next part of the story it tells.
Working for Khadija.
Right, a prominent businesswoman. And she was impressed by his honesty.
So impressed, the video recounts, that she proposed marriage to him.
And they married.
Yes. And life went on, according to this narrative, until he was about 40.
That's when things shift.
Big shift. The source describes his heart sort of turning away from worldly things.
Seeking solitude.
Yeah.
Right. Worshipping in a cave.
Exactly. And that's the setting for the pivotal moment.
The first revelation. The beginning of prophethood.
And this source specifically names the very first believers.
Who does it say they were?
Imam Ali and Khadija.
Okay. Now, here's where the dynamic flips, according to this account.
Yeah, it's dramatic. The same people who respected him
Suddenly become enemies once he starts preaching.
instantly. Threats, intense persecution. It wasn't just aimed at him either.
No.
Anyone who accepted Islam faced violence, oppression. The source names names like Abu Sufyan, Abu Jahl.
As key opponents.
Right. And it even mentions a specific time Meccans came to his house planning to kill him.
Intense.
Yeah.
But he had some protection initially.
Yeah, the source notes his uncle, Abu Talib, who'd raised him,
Right, he was an orphan.
and Khadija, they both stood firmly with him.
But that protection didn't last forever. 619 CE.
Ah, the year of sorrow, as the source calls it.
Why that name?
Because both Abu Talib and Khadija died in the same year.
Wow, both of them.
Yeah, within a short time. And the video really emphasizes this, left him feeling alone again.
And made him more vulnerable.
Led to increased plots against him from the Meccans, definitely.
Okay, so the danger is ramping up.
Culminating in what the source describes as a divine command,
Which,
the order to migrate, to leave Mecca for Medina, the Hijra.
And it's worth pausing here, because the source points out something about the numbers.
Oh yeah, crucial context.
At this point, how many Muslims were there actually?
Only about 100, maybe 200 people. That's it.
That's tiny.
No?
Facing all that opposition in Mecca.
Exactly, which makes the contrast with Medina really stark.
How so?
Well, while Mecca's plotting to kill him, tribes in Medina, the Haz and Khazraj, are actually inviting him to come.
Why were they so receptive? What does the source say?
It puts it down to them hearing about a coming prophet for years.
From who?
From the Jewish communities living among them.
Yeah.
So that anticipation was already there.
So when they heard about him in Mecca.
Are you ready? Many accepted Islam pretty quickly, the source says.
So the decision is made. Migrate to Medina.
and the Muslims start moving gradually.
The source mentions that assassination attempt again, right?
Yeah.
When they came to his house.
Yeah, Abu Sufyan shows up planning to kill him.
But finds Imam Ali in his bed instead.
Right. The video explains Ali stayed behind deliberately to return things people had entrusted to the Prophet.
A matter of honor and trust even then.
Seems so. And the Prophet himself, he travels with Abu Bakr.
And they had to hide.
Yep. The account tells of them spending 3 days in the Cave of Thor to avoid being caught.
And then arrival in Medina. How's that?
A huge welcome. Really warm reception, the source emphasizes.
And the support from the locals, the Ansar.
Extraordinary support for the Muhajirin, the migrants from Mecca.
The source gives that really striking example.
Oh, yeah. Some Ansar apparently offering to divorce their own wives so the migrants could marry.
Just shows the level of commitment and solidarity described.
It really does. And pretty much right away, the source says there's this agreement made.
A treaty.
An initial treaty with the Jewish tribes in Medina, agreeing to defend the city together if attacked.
Setting a foundation for this new community.
Then, fast forward about 2 years after the Hijrah.
First major conflict.
Battle of Badr.
Okay, context here, according to the source.
Meccans had seized property the Muslims left behind.
Right.
So permission was granted to intercept Meccan trade caravans going south.
Which passed near Medina. Kind of hitting them where it hurts, economically.
Seems like it. But the initial goal wasn't a massive battle. They set out specifically to intercept Abu Sufyan's caravan. And the source again stresses how poorly equipped the Muslims were.
Like what?
It mentions just 8 swords, 2 horses for the whole army group that went out.
That's not much.
Not at all. So facing this, the source says, Allah gives the Prophet a choice.
Okay.
The caravan or battle against a bigger Meccan force coming to protect it.
What do the companions want?
The caravan, the source notes, practical choice, right. Get resources. Battle felt like.
Certain death.
Pretty much, given the odds.
But the Prophet chooses battle.
He does. And the source presents this as guided by divine will.
Oh, so.
As a deliberate act to show a miracle. To defeat 1,000 Meccans with only 313 Muslims.
So, Abu Sufyan hears they're coming.
Sends for help from Mecca. Abu Jahl leads 1,000 men out.
And the caravan gets away.
Yeah. Abu Sufyan takes a different route. But the armies meet near Badr.
Before the main clash, there are duels.
The source describes Utbah from the Meccans issuing a challenge.
And Muslims step forward.
Hamza, Ubaidah, and Imam Ali. And this account says they defeated Utbah and his companions.
Setting the stage. Then the battle itself.
Meccans confident, obviously. Superior numbers.
But the outcome.
A rout of the Meccan army. But the source doesn't just put it down to, fighting skill.
No. Divine help again.
Explicitly, it says angels fought alongside the Muslims.
Wow. And a key figure falls.
Abu Jahl, described as the biggest enemy at the time. His death is highlighted.
So Badr, in this narrative, is a huge turning point.
Massive victory for Islam, presented as Allah granting victory through their actions, but fundamentally a divine act.
Okay, looking at Badr through this source's lens, the core message seems to be what? Why did they win?
Yeah, it's interesting. The source consistently downplays the human factors on the Muslim side, the numbers, the weapons,
Right.
and contrasts that starkly with the outcome. So the why is framed almost entirely as divine intervention, a miracle,
Yeah.
proof of God's support because nothing else explains it in this telling.
Powerful framing indeed. But the Meccans weren't just going to accept this, right?
No way. Revenge, restoring honor, that leads to the Battle of Uhud.
Abu Sufyan is back.
Leading 3,000 men this time. And Khalid bin Walid is with them.
What was the Prophet's plan, according to this source?
Tactical. Fight inside Medina. Use the city, the treaty with the Jews there for advantage.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened.
No. The source says the majority of companions wanted to fight out in the open near Uhud Mountain.
And he agreed.
He deferred to them. So they go out. 1,000 Muslims against 3,000 Meccans.
But there's a problem early on.
Yeah, internal dissent. Abdullah ibn Ubay, who the source labels a hypocrite, he just leaves. Takes 300 men with him. Suddenly the Muslim force is down to 700.
Ouch. Despite that, the Prophet sets up a strategy.
A key one. Puts 50 archers on the back of Uhud Mountain.
With very specific orders.
Incredibly strict orders. Do not move. Even if we're winning, even if, and this is the quote the source uses, birds are eating our bodies.
Don't move. Got it. How did the battle start?
Initially, well, for the Muslims, the source says the Meccans started retreating.
Victory seemed close.
Looked like it, but then human error.
The archers.
Seeing the retreat, thinking it was over, 35 of the 50 archers left their post.
Ignoring the command. Why?
To collect spoils of war, the source says.
That mistake.
Huge. Because Khalid bin Walid saw that gap open up on the mountain.
And attacked from the rear.
Exactly. A devastating counterattack.
Caught the Muslims completely off guard.
Between two forces. Chaos, heavy losses.
And the Prophet himself.
Was injured, the source mentions. Teeth damaged, which led to a rumor.
That he'd been killed.
Yes. And that caused absolute panic.
People fled?
Many companions fled the battlefield, the source states quite directly. It even names Uthman and Umar as among those who ran.
Wow. But not everyone.
No, a small group held firm. This account says only 12 people stayed with the Prophet.
Including Imam Ali.
Yes, him and Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas are mentioned.
What happened then?
This small group managed to retreat up Uhud mountain. Seeing that, Abu Sufyan decided not to pursue them into the tough terrain and withdrew.
A close call?
Very. The source adds that Imam Ali and others were sent to check the Meccans weren't regrouping for another attack. Their bravery gets praised in the Quran, according to this video.
But Uhud was costly.
Definitely. Many martyrs, including Hamza, the Prophet's uncle, described here as the Muslim army chief.
So comparing Uhud to Badr, based on this source, what's the lesson here? Why did it go wrong?
It's a great contrast, isn't it? Badr is shown as victory despite human weakness, thanks to divine help. Uhud, in this telling, is a setback because of human weakness. Disobedience by the archers, then panic and flight.
So it shows the consequences of ignoring guidance.
Exactly. The source seems to use Uhud to illustrate that even with a potentially winning strategy, human failings, disobedience, lack of faith under pressure can lead to defeat. It really highlights that interplay.
Makes sense. Okay, so after Uhud, Abu Sufyan tries again.
His biggest effort yet, the source says, assembles this massive coalition army.
The Confederates, or Azab.
Right. 10,000 strong, from various tribes, all marching on Medina.
And the Muslims.
Could only muster 3,000, facing huge odds again.
What was the plan this time?
Prophet consults his companions, and Salman al-Farisi, a Persian convert, suggests digging a trench, a defensive tactic used in Persia.
Not a typical Arab strategy.
No, completely novel for Arabia at the time.
So they dig it.
Across the open northern side of Medina, the other sides were naturally protected by mountains.
Was it easy?
No, the source notes the terrain was rocky, difficult.
And there's that story about the rock.
Yeah. During the digging, they hit this huge rock nobody could break, not even Salman.
So they call the Prophet.
Yes. And this account says he struck it 3 times with a hammer. Each strike produced this flash of light, and with each flash, he announced future conquests.
Like what?
Rome, Persia, Yemen.
Wow. How did people react to that? With 10,000 enemies camped outside.
The video points out that, for the hypocrites among them, it must have sounded like pure fantasy. A desperate situation.
Yeah, you can imagine. The source really frames this as a major test.
Huge trial. Coming after the losses at Uhud, now facing this massive army.
So the Confederates arrive.
And they're totally surprised by the trench. Throws off their whole plan.
Forces them into a siege.
Exactly. They have to camp outside Medina.
But the siege creates tension. And someone crosses the trench.
Amr bin Abdwud, described as this incredibly fearsome warrior, could supposedly fight 100 men.
He gets across.
Finds a narrow spot, manages it, then challenges the whole Muslim army.
Mocking them.
Yeah, mocking them. Their faith, their belief in paradise.
How did the Muslims respond?
Silence. The source makes a big point of this. 3,000 men, nobody dares step forward.
Except one person.
Except Imam Ali, who was about 27 at the time.
Did the Prophet let him go immediately?
No, initially held him back. But Amr kept challenging, nobody else moved.
So finally, Ali goes.
Yes, and the source describes the duel dramatically. Amr apparently recognized Ali.
Knew his father.
Yeah, connection to Abu Talib. Offered Ali options, convert, leave, or fight.
Ali chose fight.
And defeated Amr with a single blow, according to this account. Split his body in 2.
Presented as a miracle.
Definitely. Broke the enemy's momentum psychologically.
Did anyone else try crossing after that?
Nope. The source says no other Confederate dared after seeing Amr fall like that.
But the siege continues. Then more divine help.
Yeah, the source describes a fierce windstorm hitting the enemy camp.
What did it do?
Scattered tents, damaged supplies, hurt morale. A major blow.
But there was another threat, wasn't there? Internal?
Yes, a really dangerous one. The Confederates conspired with the Banu Qurayza.
The Jewish tribe inside Medina. the ones with the treaty.
Exactly. They broke the treaty, the source says, and agreed to attack the Muslims from within.
That would have been disastrous. Trapped.
Families in danger. A critical moment. But then, another twist, presented as divine help.
Through who?
A secret Muslim convert named Nuaym bin Masood. He had an idea.
What was his plan?
Clever diplomacy. Basically, so mistrust between the Confederates and Banu Qurayza.
Oh.
He went to the Jews, suggested they ask the Confederates for hostages as a guarantee they wouldn't be abandoned.
Okay.
Then he went to the Confederates, told them the Jews were asking for hostages, but secretly planned to hand them over to Muhammad.
Ah, playing both sides against each other. Did it work?
Perfectly, according to the source. The Jews ask for hostages, the Confederates refuse. The alliance collapses.
Leaving the Confederates isolated.
Isolated, battered by the wind, low on supplies, they just gave up and withdrew.
A huge victory for the Muslims, achieved through defense and maybe some clever tactics.
And in this narrative, crucial divine interventions, the wind, Nuaym's plan, Ali's duel.
After this battle, the source notes a shift in power dynamic.
Yeah, the prophet declares that from now on, the polytheists won't attack them. The Muslims will attack the polytheists.
Taking the offensive.
And right after the siege lifts, the focus turns to the Banu Qurayza.
Because of their alleged treachery during the siege.
Right. The source states the angel Gabriel commanded the prophet to move against them immediately.
An army is sent.
Led by Imam Ali, with specific orders to pray the afternoon prayer at their location.
What happened when they got there? How was judgment decided?
According to this account, the Banu Qurayza themselves requested judgment by Sa'd bin Mu'adh, one of their former allies.
And Saad's verdict.
The source states he judged, according to what it claims, was the law in their own scripture, the Torah, for treason in wartime.
Which mandated
Death for the men involved in the treachery.
and the outcome reported in the source.
The men were killed, women and children spared.
Now, the source itself acknowledges this is controversial, right?
It does. It mentions critics use this against the prophet's character.
But what's the source's counter-argument?
It argues that judging treachery severely according to established law is a principle still followed globally today. That's the perspective offered in this video.
Okay, moving on from that. The source talks about a journey for Umrah.
Yes, the lesser pilgrimage to Mecca. The prophet received a command in a dream, this account says.
So he sets out. With how many people?
About 1,500 companions, all dressed for pilgrimage, unarmed for war.
But the Meccans didn't see it that way initially.
No, they panicked, thought it was an attack force, sent Khalid bin Walid out to check.
Once they realized it was for pilgrimage, did they let them in?
Nope. Abu Sufyan refused entry without Meccan permission. Standoff.
Leads to negotiations.
The Meccans send Urwa bin Masood. Initially, he comes with threats.
Saying the companions would desert the prophet.
Yeah, if things got tough. But then he actually observes the Muslims.
And what did he say?
Extreme devotion. The source describes companions scrambling for his wudu water, rushing to obey him instantly.
Made an impression.
Big time. Urwa went back and told Abu Sufyan he'd never seen such loyalty to any king or leader. Advised making a treaty.
Which leads to the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah.
Exactly. But the terms, they seemed really one-sided, didn't they?
Yeah, the source lays them out. Meccan converts fleeing to Medina must be returned.
But Medinan converts going to Mecca, they could stay.
Umrah postponed for a year and a 10-year truce.
Seems totally in Mecca's favor. The source even says the companions were upset, tried to stop the prophet from agreeing.
And there was an immediate test case.
Right away. The son of the guy writing the treaty converted and came to Medina.
It had to be sent back.
Yep. As per the treaty terms, looked like a humiliation.
But there was an unintended consequence.
A major one, as this source tells it. Another convert, Abu Basir, was returned, but he escaped his escort.
Didn't go back to Mecca.
No. He set up camp near the Meccan caravan route, and other escaped converts joined him.
What did they do?
Started raiding Meccan caravans, became a huge problem for Mecca's economy.
So the treaty backfired on them.
Completely. The source says the Meccans actually came back to the prophet.
Asking him to change the treaty.
Yeah, asking him to please take the converts into Medina just so Abu Basir's group would stop raiding their caravans.
Wow, quite the turnaround. Proved the treaty wasn't so bad for the Muslims after all.
Exactly how this source frames it. Then, after Hudaybiyyah, Khaybar.
A Jewish fortress, wealthy, and had supported Muslim enemies.
Right. Its defeat was strategically important. Muslim force was 1,600.
Were the people of Khaybar ready?
Yes, alerted by hypocrites, the source says. Well prepared, very confident, especially because of a warrior named Marhab.
Described as exceptional.
Unparalleled in Arabia, is the claim.
Did the Muslims struggle initially?
Yeah, the source notes several prominent companions tried leading the assault but failed to take the fortress.
Leading to that famous announcement by the Prophet.
That the next day, the banner would go to someone who loves Allah and his messenger.
And whom Allah and his messenger left.
Huge anticipation among the companions. The source even mentions Umar couldn't sleep hoping it would be him.
But who got the banner?
The Prophet called for Ali, who was suffering from eye pain at the time.
And the Prophet healed him.
With saliva and prayer, this account says. Ali then promised to fight fiercely.
But he was given instructions first.
Yes, Prophet told him. First, offer them Islam. Converting even one person is better than red camels. Great wealth.
In diplomacy before fighting. But it came to a fight.
With Marhab himself, the source describes the duel vividly. Marhab boasts.
Ali responds.
Gives his name, Hadar Lion, says he attacks like one, then defeats Marhab with a single blow.
Splitting him in two. Another miracle described.
Yes, stunning the defenders. And then there's the story of the gate.
Ali lifting the fortress gate. How heavy was it supposed to be?
900 kilograms, the source claims. Uprooted single-handedly.
Incredible feat mentioned. After that,
Muslims attacked and conquered Khaybar.
So Khaybar, in this source's view, what's the main takeaway?
It seems to be twofold. Strategic victory, taking out a key enemy base, but also heavily emphasizing the unique status and, frankly, miraculous capabilities of Imam Ali, tying it directly to his love for and from Allah and the Prophet. It reinforces his special position in this narrative.
Interesting connection. Okay, next event. The Battle of Mu'tah.
Right. The trigger here, according to the source, was a Muslim envoy being killed.
Sent to invite the governor of Basra to Islam.
Yes. Killing an envoy was seen as an act of war.
So Muslims sent an army.
Against who?
Against the Roman Empire. 3,000 Muslims.
And the leadership was pre-planned.
Yes. The video details the chain. Zayd bin Haritha, then Jafar bin Abi Talib Ali's brother, then Abdullah bin Rawaha.
Facing the Romans.
How many?
100,000, the source estimates. Massive difference.
Where was the battle?
Mu'tah Mountains. And the leaders fell one by one, just as the Prophet had laid out.
Exactly.
Exactly. The source adds the detail that the Prophet, back in Medina, announced their martyrdoms as they happened, weeping.
After the 3 designated leaders fell.
Khalid bin Walid was chosen by the remaining Muslims to lead.
And his strategy.
A controlled strategic retreat, reorganizing the army to make it look like reinforcements were arriving.
Did it work?
The source says the Romans hesitated, thought it might be a trap, and withdrew, allowed the Muslims to return safely.
Okay. Then we come back to Mecca. The Treaty of Hudaybiyyah gets broken.
Yes. Allies of the Quraysh, the Banu Bakr, attacked allies of the Muslims, the Banu Quza.
And the source sees this as Quraysh breaking the truce.
A declaration of war, essentially.
So the Prophet prepares
Secretly.
a 10,000-man army for Mecca. The source includes that story about the leaked letter.
Intercepted by Ali.
Yes. And the woman who carried it was forgiven.
Did the Meccans realize what was coming?
Abu Sufyan did. Came pleading to maintain the treaty, but the Prophet refused. The truce was broken.
So the army marches on Mecca.
10,000 strong. And according to this account, the Meccans basically just surrendered upon seeing the force.
Conquered without much fighting.
Minimal fighting. Abu Sufyan himself surrendered, accepted Islam, and the Prophet declared a general amnesty.
Forgiving his former enemies.
A major moment, but not the end of the fighting.
No. Who next?
Tribes from nearby Taifa Wazin and Thaqif, they feared the now dominant Muslim power.
Decided to attack.
Yes, leading to the Battle of Hunayn. Muslim army was bigger now.
12,000. Including many new converts from Mecca itself.
Where did they fight?
Hunayn Mountains near Taif. But there was a problem at the start, a big one, highlighted by the source. Overconfidence.
Because of the numbers.
Yeah. The source quotes some saying, "We were only 313 at Badr, now 12,000 will win easily."
Forgetting reliance on God.
Exactly. Arrogance crept in, the source implies, and it led to disaster initially.
How?
The enemy ambushed them fiercely from the mountains. The Muslim ranks broke. People fled.
Almost everyone.
The source says only about 80 people remained steadfast with the Prophet.
80 out of 12,000. Wow, what did the Prophet do?
Advanced alone, declaring his identity, "I am the Prophet, no lie, I am the son of Abu Talib." threw a handful of dust towards the enemy. The source claims it blinded them.
Another miraculous intervention.
That's how it's presented. This turned the tide. Muslims regrouped and won. Gained a lot of spoils.
Hunayn really is another interesting contrast to Badr, isn't it?
It really is. Badr's small force wins through divine help despite weakness. Hunayn, large force, loses initially due to weakness, arrogance, then wins through divine intervention via the Prophet.
Reinforces that theme of reliance on God being key, regardless of numbers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a consistent thread in this narrative. Okay, last major campaign described, Tabuk.
This was against the Romans again.
Yes, a decision to proactively confront the Roman Empire after Mu'tah. And the source notes, a Quranic command made participation almost mandatory.
Staying behind was a sign of hypocrisy.
That's the implication. And the source frames Tabuk as the toughest test yet.
Why so tough?
Multiple reasons. Happened during harvest season in Medina. Long, hard journey north to Tabuk.
Facing the Romans again, the superpower.
Yeah, 100,000 Romans versus maybe 3,000 Muslims. The source repeats those kinds of numbers.
Yeah.
Some Muslims didn't even have shoes.
So this really sorted the true believers from the hypocrites.
Starkly revealed faith, the source says. Many hypocrites made excuses.
And they even built their own mosque.
In Medina, yeah. Expecting the Prophet not to return from Tabuk, planning to take over.
What about Imam Ali during Tabuk?
Prophet asked him to stay behind in Medina for protection. Ali was sad about missing the campaign.
But the Prophet reassured him.
Compared his position to Aaron's with Moses, adding that crucial line, "But there is no prophet after me."
Emphasizing finality. So the Prophet leads 3,000 men to Tabuk.
That arduous journey and the outcome. Roman army fled without a fight upon seeing the Muslims arrive, presented again as a miracle by the source.
Oh, battle.
No battle. Prophet stayed 40 days, made treaties with local tribes, solidified influence in the north.
But there was drama on the way back.
An assassination attempt on the Prophet in a narrow mountain pass.
By who?
14 hypocrites, the source states. They were foiled by Ammar bin Yasir and Hudayfa bin Yaman,
And their names were known.
revealed privately to Hudayfa by the Prophet, according to this account.
And that mosque the hypocrites built back in Medina.
Upon returning, the Prophet, commanded by Allah, the source says, ordered it destroyed, symbolically ending that internal plot.
So the significance of Tabuk in this telling.
It marked the point where Islam became, quote, a global power, and it was the Prophet's last battle.
The final military expedition led by him.
The narrative then moves towards the end of his life,
Mentioning his passing away after this.
which closes this foundational period.
And marks the start of what the source calls Islam's most complex period.
So yeah, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into this specific account from the Zulfiqar transcript you shared with us.
We've really traced its narrative arc, haven't we? From that small persecuted group.
Facing just immense challenges, both external enemies and internal struggles.
Who emerging as this major force, all according to this one source's telling, of course.
We've tried to pull out those key moments as presented here, and the emphasis on divine intervention.
Right. The strategic decisions like the trench or Khalid's retreat at Mu'tah.
The victories against the odds, and those recurring tests of loyalty versus hypocrisy.
All drawn straight from the material provided. We really hope this breakdown gave you, our listener, a clear and engaging look at these events through this particular lens.
Yeah, understanding this specific perspective on Islam's origins.
And maybe here's a final thought, something to chew on, based on this narrative we've explored. Considering this story, a small group, often outnumbered, facing huge external forces and internal betrayal, yet overcoming it all through what's presented as faith, strategy, and divine help. What does that specific portrayal suggest about the power of conviction, of resilience, when you're up against seemingly impossible odds, regardless of the specific historical context,
That's a great question to ponder. The role of belief and determination in the face of overwhelming adversity. Something to think about.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.